It's 3 a.m. on Christmas morning. The turkey's on fire, your drunk uncle thinks the eggnog is poisoned, and someone just called 911 because the cranberry sauce won't come out of the can. Welcome to the dumbest, loudest, most panic-driven Christmas emergencies ever recorded. From elf on the shelf possession to full police response over a melted snowman, murder. These 26 real 911 disasters will make you snort hot cocoa out your nose. If you want the cranberry catastrophe, the reindeer poop investigation, and the legendary gingerbread house collapse, smash like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment before your elf on the shelf reports you to Santa. 1. A worried grandfather calls 911 because his Christmas tree keeps moving on its own. He tells dispatch the branches are breathing. The operator stays calm and asks if anyone else is in the room. The grandfather whispers that the tree is alive and trying to communicate. Officers arrive expecting a major emergency. They discover a heating vent directly behind the tree pushing warm air through the branches. The tree continues to sway dramatically, which confuses the grandfather even more. The officers explain the situation slowly. The grandfather sighs in relief and apologizes for assuming supernatural activity. 2. A young woman calls 911 at 3 in the morning and tells the dispatcher she needs urgent assistance. The operator prepares for the worst. The woman then cheerfully wishes them a Merry Christmas. She explains she is wide awake and wants to confirm Santa has officially started his route. The dispatcher tries to remain professional while another operator in the background begins laughing. The woman insists she needs verification for her younger brother, who refuses to sleep. The dispatcher assures her everything is on schedule. The woman proudly announces she will relay the update immediately. She ends the call satisfied. 3. A stressed father calls 911 because his brand new Christmas projector is casting what he believes is a shadowy creature on the living room wall. He tells the dispatcher the creature keeps waving. The dispatcher asks if anyone is standing near the projector. The father insists everyone is upstairs. Officers arrive and immediately start laughing when they realize the father walked past the projector while on the phone. His own silhouette had been stretching across the room the entire time. The dispatcher sighs and marks the incident as self-generated terror. The father promises never to trust shadows again. 4. A teenage boy calls 911 claiming his Christmas cookie dough is expanding uncontrollably. He tells the dispatcher it has grown twice its size and is pushing the bowl off the counter. The dispatcher tries to stay calm, but a colleague laughs in the background. The boy insists it is alive. An officer checks the home and discovers the dough placed directly on a heated stovetop. It is simply rising faster than normal. The officer gives a full explanation while the dispatcher snickers quietly. The boy apologizes and says he thought it was a new kind of holiday creature. 5. A young woman calls 911 convinced her Christmas stockings are moving by themselves. She explains she saw one shift across the mantle. The dispatcher asks if there is airflow in the house. The woman insists everything is sealed. An officer arrives and finds a tiny kitten curled inside one stocking, causing it to sway. The dispatcher hears the officer laugh gently before reporting the discovery. The woman gasps in embarrassment and admits she adopted the kitten yesterday and forgot it was roaming freely. The dispatcher logs the case as feline stocking disturbance. The kitten receives no charges. 6. An elderly man calls 911 shouting that his outdoor nativity scene is glowing brighter every minute. He fears it is a supernatural warning. The dispatcher asks if new bulbs were installed. The man says nothing was changed. Officers arrive and discover a neighbor pointed a high-powered holiday spotlight directly across the yard without noticing. The dispatcher bursts into laughter when hearing the explanation. The elderly man thanks the officers for preventing a heavenly misunderstanding. The neighbor apologizes and adjusts the light. The dispatcher marks the event as excessive illumination incident. Order returns to the street quickly. 7. A mother of 3 calls 911 in panic because her Christmas tree ornaments are spinning wildly. She believes the tree has been taken over by unseen forces. The dispatcher tries to remain calm and asks if a window is open. The mother insists everything is closed. Officers enter the home and immediately feel a strong rush of air from a fan hidden behind the sofa. The fan is pointed directly at the tree. The dispatcher chuckles when they hear the report. The mother blushes and switches off the fan. The officer assures her the ornaments were never possessed. 8. A middle-aged woman calls 911, claiming a strange metallic clanking sound is echoing through her house. She fears someone is breaking in through the chimney. The dispatcher takes notes while another operator giggles quietly. Officers arrive and trace the sound to a robotic vacuum, dragging a metal ornament across the floor like a determined thief. The dispatcher listens to the officer describe the scene in disbelief. The woman apologizes and says she forgot the vacuum was scheduled to run. The dispatcher marks the call as robotic noise confusion. The vacuum continues its shift without further issues. 9. A retired veteran calls 911, reporting a red blinking light outside his window. He believes a mysterious aircraft is hovering over the neighborhood. The dispatcher asks him to describe the pattern. The veteran insists it is a slow pulse. Officers reach the home and discover the blinking light belongs to a lost delivery drone stuck in a tree. The dispatcher laughs softly as they hear the officer confirm the drone's identity. The veteran thanks them and salutes the officers for neutralizing what he thought was a threat. The dispatcher logs the event as airborne holiday confusion. 10. A young couple calls 911 terrified because the Christmas choir outside their home suddenly stopped singing in perfect unison. They claim something must have happened to the group. The dispatcher asks if they saw any danger. The couple says the silence feels unnatural. Officers arrive and discover the choir simply paused to check lyrics because half of them forgot the next verse. The dispatcher snorts, trying to contain laughter while listening to the update. The couple apologizes and says they expected a dramatic event. The officer reassures them everything is safe. The dispatcher logs it as lyrical emergency misinterpretation. 11. A high school teacher calls 911 because her Christmas village display keeps making strange noises. She tells the dispatcher the tiny houses are rattling, as if something is trapped inside. The dispatcher asks her to check for loose parts. She refuses because she fears a creature is living in the snow village. Officers arrive and discover her pet hamster managed to break free from its cage and burrow underneath the display. The dispatcher bursts into laughter as the officer explains the tiny homeowner. The teacher apologizes while holding the runaway hamster. The dispatcher logs it as miniature community disturbance. 12. A grandmother calls 911 claiming her Christmas wreath is shaking violently on the front door. She believes a holiday spirit is trying to enter the house. The dispatcher asks if it is windy. The grandmother insists the air is completely still. Officers check the door and find a squirrel trapped behind the wreath, fighting desperately to escape. The dispatcher laughs through the report while the officer gently frees the squirrel. The grandmother claps her hands in shock and apologizes for assuming a supernatural event. The dispatcher marks it as wildlife door incident. The squirrel leaves without further complaints. 13. A teenage boy calls 911 after seeing glowing footprints in the snow leading toward his backyard. He tells the dispatcher he believes an alien Christmas visitor has arrived. The dispatcher asks if anyone used a flashlight recently. The boy swears the prints appeared on their own. Officers arrive and shine their lights across the yard. They quickly discover the glowing prints were created by the boy's little sister, playing with glow-in-the-dark paint earlier that day. The dispatcher laughs openly when hearing the explanation. The boy feels embarrassed. The officer logs it as glowing sibling creativity. 14. A middle-aged father calls 911 because his inflatable Christmas characters are deflating one by one. He believes a prankster is attacking his yard. The dispatcher asks if the inflatables are plugged in. The father insists everything is secure. Officers arrive and discover a tripped breaker powering the entire display. The dispatcher chuckles as they hear the officer reset the breaker and watch the inflatables rise dramatically. The father apologizes for assuming sabotage. The officer assures him no enemy was present. The dispatcher marks the call as power failure panic. The inflatables resume smiling peacefully. 15. A young teen calls 911, convinced her hot chocolate mug is haunted. She tells the dispatcher the marshmallows are sinking and rising like tiny ghosts. The dispatcher tries not to laugh while asking if the drink was stirred. The teen insists she never touched it. Officers visit the home and explain that warm liquid causes marshmallows to shift naturally. The dispatcher hears the explanation and bursts into laughter. The teen blushes and apologizes for assuming paranormal activity. The officer logs the event as marshmallow movement misunderstanding. The dispatcher ends the call still chuckling at the harmless mystery. 16. A single father calls 911 terrified because his attic is making heavy thumping noises during Christmas dinner. He believes a burglar is hiding above them. The dispatcher sends officers while calming the father down. When officers enter the attic, they find a large box of oversized ornaments rolling every time the heater activates. The dispatcher hears the officer laughing as the ornaments continue bumping randomly. The father apologizes and admits he stored everything quickly without checking stability. The dispatcher marks it as attic noise confusion. The thumping stops once the heater turns off. Holiday peace restored. 17. A young woman calls 911 claiming her outdoor snowman keeps changing positions. She believes someone is moving it each time she turns around. The dispatcher asks if the snowman might be melting. She insists the snowman is solid. Officers inspect the yard and quickly discover her energetic dog repeatedly bumping into the snowman while chasing toys. The dispatcher laughs when the officer reports a tail-wagging culprit. The woman blushes and apologizes. The dog proudly sits beside the snowman like an assistant. The dispatcher logs the event as canine snow repositioning. 18. A frustrated older man calls 911 because he hears a steady tapping sound coming from his roof. He fears a criminal is scouting the house. The dispatcher asks if any decorations are loose. He says everything is secure. Officers check the roof and find a loose plastic candy cane repeatedly hitting the shingles with every breeze. The dispatcher laughs when hearing how loud the simple decoration became. The man apologizes and says it sounded like footsteps. The officer secures the candy cane and assures him no intruder was present. The dispatcher records it as decorative tapping incident. 19. A mother calls 911 screaming that her Christmas stockings are falling off the fireplace one at a time. She believes someone is pulling them down invisibly. The dispatcher asks her to stay calm and check for movement. Officers arrive and find her toddler behind the couch, tugging the stockings with absolute determination. The dispatcher laughs out loud when the officer describes the tiny culprit. The mother apologizes while lifting the toddler who proudly holds a stocking. The dispatcher logs the incident as toddler-assisted stocking removal. Peace returns once the stockings are re-hung out of reach. 20. A college student calls 911 terrified after hearing deep growling sounds coming from a gift box under the tree. The dispatcher asks if any pets are nearby. The student insists the pets are outside. Officers arrive and carefully open the box. Inside, they find the family's new puppy delivered early by a relative who forgot to remove the ventilation holes. The dispatcher laughs when hearing the officer announce the furry source. The student bursts into tears of relief and joy. The dispatcher logs it as mystery gift creature resolved. The puppy becomes the happiest surprise of the night. 21. A delivery driver calls 911 shaking after seeing a red glowing object pulsing inside a mailbox. He believes it is a dangerous device. The dispatcher tells him to step back and officers rush to the scene. They carefully open the mailbox and discover a novelty Christmas card with a built-in pulsing light. The dispatcher laughs loudly when hearing the update. The driver apologizes and says it looked too advanced to be a greeting card. The officer assures him technology has changed. The dispatcher logs it as high-tech card confusion. The mailbox returns to harmless operation. 22. A young father calls 911 because he hears jingling above his ceiling. He fears someone is hiding in the attic with bells. The dispatcher asks if any holiday decorations were stored recently. The father says he put away several boxes earlier. Officers check the attic and find a loose box of sleigh bells vibrating whenever the furnace activates. The dispatcher laughs loudly, hearing the simple cause. The father apologizes and admits he stacked everything too close to the furnace. The officer secures the box. The dispatcher records the call as furnace-powered bell rattling. 23. An older woman calls 911, reporting that her outdoor nutcracker statue keeps opening and closing its mouth. She believes someone has hacked it to scare her. The dispatcher asks if the wind is strong. The woman insists the air is calm. Officers arrive and find a stray cat hiding behind the statue batting at the lever. The dispatcher laughs as the officer describes the cat puppeteering the nutcracker. The woman apologizes and gently shoos the cat away. The dispatcher logs it as feline nutcracker operation. The cat leaves proudly as if finishing a performance. 24. A teenage boy calls 911 after seeing flashing red lights under his bed. He tells the dispatcher aliens might be scanning him. The dispatcher tries to stay serious and asks what he keeps stored under the bed. The boy says only gifts. Officers investigate and find a holiday toy accidentally activated. Its lights blink dramatically in the darkness. The dispatcher laughs hearing the discovery. The boy apologizes and admits he forgot he placed the toy there. The officer logs the call as underbed toy malfunction. The boy promises to check his gifts before assuming extraterrestrial activity. 25. A young mother calls 911 believing a snow creature is stalking her backyard. She sees large prints circling her shed. The dispatcher asks if she owns pets. She says the prints are far too big. Officers examine the yard and determine the prints belong to a neighbor's large dog who escaped earlier. The dispatcher laughs when the officer reports the friendly intruder wagging its tail proudly. The mother apologizes for assuming a mythical creature. The officer logs it as oversized dog wandering. The dog is returned home without incident. 26. A middle-aged man calls 911 in shock because his outdoor speaker keeps shouting Merry Christmas at random moments. He believes someone hacked his system. The dispatcher asks if he connected it to his phone. The man insists he did nothing unusual. Officers check the system and discover a pre-recorded message set to trigger every hour. The dispatcher laughs loudly hearing the explanation. The man blushes and admits he set it up weeks ago and forgot. The officer logs it as automated cheer confusion. The speaker continues spreading joy once properly adjusted. Christmas chaos never ends, and neither do the unbelievable calls people make when the holiday spirit goes wild. These stories show how quickly a simple moment can turn into a full 9/11 adventure. If you want more insane holiday disasters and unbelievable real reactions, make sure to subscribe and stay with us. Now here is the question that decides your place on the nice list. Which one of these 9/11 Christmas calls would you have accidentally made yourself and why?